There comes a moment in every human life when the noise of the world grows quieter than the voice inside your own chest. A moment when the distractions lose their color. A moment when the applause of strangers means nothing. A moment when you stand face to face with yourself and realize the greatest battle was never against poverty, rejection, critics, failure, or circumstance. The greatest battle has always been against hesitation, against delay, against the slow poison of excuses. Most people never notice the moment their dream begins to die. It does not collapse in one dramatic instant. It fades. It fades when they say, "I'll start tomorrow." It fades when they trade vision for comfort. It fades when fear dresses itself in logic. It fades when they convince themselves that average is safe. And one day they wake up staring at a life they never intended to live. Not because destiny abandoned them, because they abandoned themselves. You were not born to spend your years apologizing for your potential. You were not created to live chained to excuses inherited from broken environments, weak thinking, temporary setbacks, or the opinions of people who surrendered long ago. There is something buried inside you that refuses to die. Something ancient. Something relentless, a fire. And that fire becomes dangerous the moment you stop explaining your limitations and start confronting your power. Because the truth is this, the world does not reward hesitation. It rewards decision. The universe moves for those who move, not for those who wait. Every empire began as a thought held by someone who refused to bow to uncertainty. Every invention, every movement, every transformation. Someone decided that their purpose mattered more than their fear. And now the same choice stands before you, right now. Not next year, not when conditions improve, not when everyone finally understands your vision. Now, because purpose does not arrive wrapped in convenience. Purpose arrives like a storm. It interrupts comfort. It destroys illusion. It demands sacrifice. And the people who become extraordinary are not the people who avoid the storm. They are the people who walk directly into it with conviction in their soul. Look closely at your life. Everything changes the moment you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin asking, "What happens if I never try?" That question has the power to wake the sleeping giant inside you. Because regret is heavier than effort. Regret follows people into old age. Regret sits beside hospital beds. Regret whispers through sleepless nights. Regret reminds people of the person they could have become. But effort builds strength. Effort creates momentum. Effort transforms identity. And identity is everything. You do not rise to the level of your wishes. You rise to the level of the person you become every single day. That is why excuses are so deadly. They are identity killers. Every excuse teaches the mind weakness. Every excuse trains the spirit to retreat. Every excuse builds another wall between you and the life waiting for you. And if you repeat those excuses long enough, they stop sounding like lies. They start sounding like truth. I'm too late. I don't have enough resources. I didn't grow up with opportunities. I'm not confident enough. I'll begin when I'm ready. Listen carefully. Most people are not trapped by reality. They are trapped by interpretation. Two people can stand in the same storm. One sees destruction. The other sees opportunity. One sees an excuse to quit. The other sees a reason to rise. And that difference changes everything. Because your mind is not just a container for thoughts. It is a magnet. What dominates your inner world eventually shapes your outer reality. If your mind becomes addicted to excuses, your life will become a monument to unfinished potential. But if your mind becomes disciplined by purpose, your reality will begin bending toward your vision. This is why belief matters. Not shallow positivity, not pretending life is easy. Real belief, the kind forged in darkness, the kind that survives rejection, the kind that keeps walking when results are invisible. The kind that says, I will continue even when exhaustion crawls through your bones. Because belief is not emotional excitement. Belief is loyalty to a vision before proof arrives. And history belongs to people who mastered that loyalty. There are people right now living lives they once considered impossible. Not because they were chosen, because they chose themselves. That is the difference. The world waits for permission. Leaders create permission. The average person waits for confidence before action. The purposeful person understands confidence is born from action. Motion creates clarity. Action destroys confusion. Momentum silences fear. And yet so many people remain frozen because they worship certainty. But certainty is a myth. Nobody knows exactly how the journey unfolds. Nobody sees every step before beginning. The road reveals itself only after movement. A ship sitting in the harbor feels safe. But ships were never built for harbors, and you were never built for stagnation. You were built to stretch, to grow, to become. Inside you is a version of yourself waiting to emerge. Stronger, sharper, wiser, more disciplined, more courageous. But that version cannot appear while you cling to the comfort of excuses. Transformation requires surrender, not surrender to weakness. Surrender to truth. The truth that nobody is coming to rescue you. The truth that your future is being built by your present habits. The truth that every day you delay your purpose, you strengthen your chains. And chains become harder to break the longer you wear them. That is why discipline is sacred. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the ability to honor your future without negotiating with your current emotions. Because emotions change like weather. Purpose does not. Some mornings you will wake up inspired. Other mornings you will feel empty. Some days the world will celebrate you. Other days it will ignore you completely. But discipline says continue anyway. That is power. Real power is not domination over others. Real power is command over yourself. Can you move when you do not feel like moving? Can you stay committed when the excitement disappears? Can you keep building when nobody applauds? Can you remain faithful to your mission while surrounded by distractions designed to weaken your focus? Because this world profits from distraction. Attention is currency, and every day countless forces compete for your mind. They want your focus scattered. They want your ambition diluted. They want your energy exhausted on meaningless things. A distracted person is easy to control. A purposeful person becomes unstoppable. That is why clarity matters. You must know what you are building. You must know why you wake up. You must know what kind of life deserves your energy. Without clarity, effort becomes chaos. Without vision, movement becomes wandering. And wandering creates frustration. But once purpose becomes clear, your decisions sharpen. Your standards rise. Your circle changes. Your habits evolve. Your entire existence begins reorganizing itself around the mission. You stop wasting years trying to impress people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking your dreams to make insecure people comfortable. You stop explaining your ambition to those addicted to mediocrity. Because lions do not seek approval from sheep, and purpose does not require consensus. Understand this deeply. The people who mock your discipline today will someday admire your results. But by then you will no longer need their validation. Because the strongest confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you build internal trust. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you strengthen your identity. Every time you refuse to surrender to excuses, you reclaim power. And eventually there comes a point where your old mindset no longer recognizes you. That is evolution, not physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. You begin seeing obstacles differently. Where others see dead ends, you see training. Where others see rejection, you see redirection. Where others see pain, you see transformation. Because adversity is not your enemy. Adversity is your forge. Steel is not created in comfort. Diamonds are not formed without pressure. Greatness is born in resistance. The strongest people are rarely those who lived easy lives. They are the ones who walked through fire without allowing the fire to consume their spirit. Every setback carries hidden instruction. Every failure contains intelligence. Every painful season can become fuel if you refuse to become bitter. Bitterness is another excuse. It is pain that never found purpose. And too many people build identities around their wounds. They introduce themselves through their suffering. They relive their disappointments daily. They worship old pain until it becomes a prison. But your pain was never meant to imprison you. It was meant to prepare you. The struggle taught you endurance. The betrayal taught you discernment. The loneliness taught you self-reliance. The losses taught you gratitude. The failures taught you strategy. And now life is asking a question. Will you use your story as an excuse, or will you use it as a weapon? Because there is someone somewhere waiting for the example your life could become. Someone who will one day rise because you refuse to quit. Purpose is never only about you. Purpose ripples outward. One disciplined person can change an entire family bloodline. One courageous decision can alter generations. One refusal to surrender can inspire thousands. But none of that happens while you remain trapped in hesitation. You cannot step into destiny while clinging to excuses like security blankets. At some point you must decide, either you protect your limitations or you protect your purpose. You cannot do both. And make no mistake, the world will test your commitment. There will be moments when exhaustion whispers, stop. There will be moments when doubt crawls into your thoughts like poison. There will be nights when your progress feels invisible. Moments when the dream feels distant. Moments when people you trusted disappear. Moments when the weight feels unbearable. But those moments reveal who you truly are. Anyone can move forward when conditions are perfect. Character appears when conditions collapse. That is where purpose is crowned. Not in comfort, in conflict. Not when everything feels easy. When every excuse begs you to quit and you continue anyway. That is when your spirit becomes dangerous. Because once a person discovers they can survive hardship, fear loses authority over them. And fear has controlled too many lives for too long. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. But fear is often imagination misused. People suffer over futures that have not happened. They build prisons from assumptions. They surrender to scenarios existing only in their minds. Meanwhile, opportunity passes them by. Not because they lack talent, because they lacked courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement despite fear. The warrior feels fear. The entrepreneur feels fear. The artist feels fear. The leader feels fear. But they refuse to let fear become commander. They act, and action changes identity. The moment you begin acting like the person you wish to become, your transformation accelerates. Because the subconscious mind listens more to behavior than words. If you constantly speak about greatness while practicing inconsistency, your actions cancel your declarations. But when your habits align with your vision, your mind begins accepting a new reality. That is why repetition matters. Every day you either reinforce weakness or reinforce strength. Every choice becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Skip the workout. Delay the dream. Break the promise. Ignore the opportunity. You cast votes for mediocrity. Wake up early. Study when tired. Stay disciplined. Take the risk. Keep your word. You cast votes for greatness, and eventually those votes become identity. Identity becomes destiny. This is not about perfection. Perfection is another illusion that keeps people inactive. This is about progression, consistent movement, relentless growth, daily evolution. Small, disciplined actions repeated long enough create extraordinary outcomes. Mountains erode through persistence. Rivers carve stone through consistency. And human beings transform through repeated intentional behavior. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You need to stop betraying your future daily. That is the shift, because every time you abandon your standards, you weaken your self-image, and self-image determines performance. People rarely outperform the identity they secretly believe about themselves. So if you believe you are weak, you will unconsciously create evidence supporting weakness. If you believe you are unlucky, you will overlook opportunities. If you believe you are incapable, you will hesitate at every door. But when you begin seeing yourself as disciplined, capable, resilient, purposeful, your actions start changing to match that belief. The inner world always shapes the outer world. That is why gratitude matters. Not because gratitude magically removes hardship, because gratitude trains the mind to recognize abundance instead of obsession with lack. A person consumed by lack becomes desperate. A grateful person becomes powerful. Gratitude sharpens awareness. It reminds you of your breath, your opportunities, your lessons, your growth, your second chances. And the more aware you become of what already exists within your reach, the less control excuses have over you. Excuses thrive in blindness. Purpose thrives in awareness. There are people with fewer resources than you building extraordinary lives. People with greater obstacles creating momentum. People carrying heavier pain who still choose discipline. Why? Because they stopped negotiating with their excuses. They realized something powerful. The conditions may never become perfect. The timing may never feel ideal. The fear may never fully disappear. But life rewards movement, always. A seed does not argue with the soil. It grows. The sun does not ask permission to rise. It rises. The ocean does not apologize for its depth. It moves with power. Nature itself teaches you the law of purpose. Everything fulfilling its design moves with certainty. And you were designed for more than survival. You were designed to create, to build, to lead, to expand, to leave impact behind. But impact requires responsibility. And responsibility terrifies people addicted to excuses. Because once you accept responsibility, blame disappears. No more blaming the past. No more blaming society. No more blaming circumstances. No more blaming critics. You reclaim authorship. And authorship is power. The moment you realize your responses shape your future more than your conditions, your life changes forever. You stop waiting for rescue. You become the force. You become the builder. You become the creator. That is the awakening. Most people spend years searching for motivation while avoiding responsibility. But responsibility creates motivation. When your mission becomes bigger than your moods, discipline becomes natural. When your vision becomes stronger than your distractions, focus becomes easier. When your purpose becomes more important than temporary comfort, sacrifice becomes meaningful. And sacrifice is unavoidable. Every life demands payment. The question is whether you will pay now through discipline or later through regret. One pain builds you, the other destroys you. Choose carefully, because time is moving whether you move or not. Days become months. Months become years. Years become lifetimes. And many people suddenly discover they spent decades preparing to live instead of actually living. Do not become one of them. You do not need another excuse. You need a decision. A real decision. The kind that cuts off retreat. The kind that burns the bridge behind you. The kind that says, I will become who I was meant to become no matter how difficult the road becomes. That level of commitment changes the energy of your entire existence. Because committed people operate differently. They stop asking if something is possible. They ask what it will require. They stop looking for shortcuts. They become the kind of person capable of enduring the journey. And endurance is everything. Talent without endurance fades. Vision without endurance collapses. Dreams without endurance remain fantasies. The winners are rarely the people who never struggle. They are the people who refuse to stop. Persistence is a spiritual force. It communicates seriousness to the universe. It separates wishful thinking from genuine purpose. Anybody can become excited temporarily. Very few remain committed consistently. That is why persistence creates uncommon results. Most people quit too early. They stop during the season that was about to shape them. They retreat moments before the breakthrough. They abandon the process because the progress looked invisible. But roots grow underground before trees appear above the surface. Not all growth is immediately visible. Sometimes your discipline is building foundations you cannot yet see. Sometimes your sacrifices are preparing capacities your future will require. Sometimes the silence is not punishment. It is preparation. Do not confuse delay with denial. Life often tests whether you truly desire what you claim to want. Can you remain faithful during uncertainty? Can you continue building without immediate reward? Can you maintain standards when nobody monitors you? Because purpose demands maturity. And maturity means understanding that short-term discomfort often creates long-term freedom. The disciplined person suffers now and gains later. The undisciplined person avoids discomfort now and suffers later. Every choice carries consequences. Every habit builds a future. And your future is watching you right now. The person you will become 10 years from now is being shaped by what you tolerate today. Your standards determine your direction. If you tolerate laziness, you move toward weakness. If you tolerate distraction, you move toward confusion. If you tolerate excuses, you move toward regret. But if you demand discipline from yourself, if you demand focus, growth, courage, honesty, effort, resilience, your future changes, not magically, strategically, intentionally, powerfully. And understand this, you do not need everybody to believe in you. Some people will misunderstand your transformation because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Some people will criticize your ambition because your discipline exposes their excuses. Some people only love the version of you that remains small. Do not shrink to preserve weak connections. Your purpose is more important than being understood by everyone. Protect your energy. Protect your focus. Protect your standards. Not everybody deserves access to your mind. The people surrounding you influence your thinking, your expectations, your behaviors, your vision of what is possible. If you constantly sit among people who normalize mediocrity, your ambition slowly suffocates. But when you surround yourself with growth, discipline, wisdom, courage, accountability, your spirit expands. Iron sharpens iron. Environment matters. Feed your mind carefully. The books you read, the conversations you entertain, the voices you follow, the habits you repeat, all of it becomes part of your identity. And identity creates outcomes. That is why learning never stops. The moment you believe you know enough, growth dies. Purposeful people remain students forever. They study failure. They study success. They study human nature. They study themselves. Because self-awareness is one of the greatest forms of power. A person who understands their patterns can transform them. A person blind to themselves repeats cycles endlessly. Pay attention to your habits. Pay attention to your emotional triggers. Pay attention to the excuses your mind repeats most often. Those excuses reveal the exact areas where growth is needed. If your mind constantly says, "I don't have time," what it often means is your priorities lack clarity. If your mind says, "I'm not ready," what it often means is fear is disguising itself as preparation. If your mind says, "What if I fail?" what it often means is your imagination is being used against you instead of for you. Master your mind, or your mind will master you. And the battlefield always begins internally. Before every victory in the physical world, there is first a victory in thought. The athlete sees the win internally. The entrepreneur believes in the company before others see it. The visionary imagines the future before society accepts it. Creation happens twice. First in the mind, then in reality. That is why protecting your vision matters so deeply. Do not expose fragile dreams to people committed to cynicism. A seed requires protection while growing, and so does purpose. Not everybody deserves front row access to your becoming. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes privacy protects power. Build quietly if necessary. Grow relentlessly regardless. Because eventually results speak with a voice excuses cannot silence. And when your life begins changing, people will call you lucky. They will not see the mornings you fought your own mind. They will not see the lonely nights of discipline. They will not see the sacrifices. They will not see the fear you overcame. They will only see the outcome. That is why you cannot build your life around external validation. If applause becomes your fuel, criticism will become your destruction. Your drive must come from something deeper. Purpose, conviction, vision, service, a calling bigger than ego. Because ego seeks attention. Purpose seeks impact, and impact requires humility. The moment success begins feeding arrogance, destruction quietly begins. Stay grounded, stay teachable, stay hungry. Never forget where you started. Never forget the pain that shaped you. Never forget the version of yourself who once prayed for the opportunities you now possess. Humility keeps the spirit clean. Gratitude keeps the heart strong. Discipline keeps the mission alive. And resilience keeps you moving when life becomes heavy. Because life will become heavy. Even purposeful people experience heartbreak. Even disciplined people face disappointment. Even visionaries endure seasons of uncertainty. No human escapes challenge. But challenge does not have to destroy you. It can deepen you. There is strength born only through suffering. There is wisdom born only through mistakes. There is compassion born only through pain. And sometimes the hardest seasons become the birthplace of the strongest identities. Do not curse every difficult chapter. Some chapters are introducing you to your true self, the version of you capable of carrying greater responsibility, the version of you strong enough to lead, the version of you disciplined enough to build lasting impact, the version of you brave enough to stop hiding. Because hiding is exhausting. Pretending you do not care. Pretending you are not capable. Pretending your dreams do not matter. Pretending you are satisfied with less. Your soul becomes tired when it lives beneath its potential. That exhaustion many people feel is not always physical. Sometimes it is spiritual starvation. They are disconnected from purpose, disconnected from growth, disconnected from the mission their spirit craves. And no amount of entertainment can satisfy a soul that abandoned its calling. That is why distractions become addictions. People numb themselves because silence forces confrontation. Confrontation with wasted potential. Confrontation with fear. Confrontation with truth. But truth is liberation. The moment you stop lying to yourself, transformation begins. The moment you admit you have been playing small, growth begins. The moment you accept responsibility for your future, power returns. And from that moment forward, excuses begin dying. Not instantly, but steadily. Every disciplined action weakens them. Every courageous decision starves them. Every promise kept to yourself destroys another layer of limitation. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize you are no longer the person who once doubted their own power. You became stronger, not because life became easier, because you became intentional. You became focused. You became relentless, and relentless people alter reality. They refuse to let temporary emotions determine permanent outcomes. They refuse to surrender identity to circumstance. They refuse to let excuses write the story of their lives. That is the energy you must carry now. No more waiting, no more hiding, no more negotiating with weakness. The crown of purpose belongs to those willing to earn it daily. Not once, daily, through habits, through sacrifice, through integrity, through consistency, through courage repeated long after excitement fades. And understand something profound. You do not become extraordinary in one giant leap. You become extraordinary through ordinary actions performed with uncommon commitment. One focused morning, one disciplined choice, one courageous conversation, 1 hour of study, one refusal to quit, one decision to continue despite resistance. Brick by brick, thought by thought, habit by habit. That is how empires are built. That is how identities are transformed. That is how purpose becomes reality. So when doubt appears again, remember this: your excuses have never built anything. Your fear has never created opportunity. Your hesitation has never changed your life. But your action can. Your discipline can. Your belief can. Your persistence can. Your purpose can. There is greatness waiting on the other side of the excuses you keep protecting. There is another life waiting on the other side of your commitment. There is another version of you waiting beyond the boundaries of comfort. And that version is stronger than you realize. That version wakes up with intention. That version honors discipline. That version refuses to surrender to fear. That version moves with clarity. That version understands time is sacred. That version no longer begs life for permission. That version creates, builds, leads, expands. And the distance between who you are now and who you are capable of becoming is built through decisions, not miracles, not luck. Decisions. Decide to rise. Decide to focus. Decide to become disciplined. Decide to protect your vision. Decide to master your habits. Decide to stop explaining your limitations. Decide to honor your potential. Decide to become dangerous to mediocrity, because the world does not need another person sleepwalking through existence. The world needs people awake with purpose, people willing to build instead of complain, people willing to endure instead of surrender, people willing to lead themselves before trying to lead others, people willing to stand in truth even when comfort tempts compromise. Be one of those people. The clock is moving. Life is happening. Your future is forming. And every moment you spend feeding excuses is a moment stolen from your purpose. Enough doubting yourself, enough delaying your greatness, enough shrinking your vision, enough worshiping fear, enough allowing temporary discomfort to control permanent destiny. This is your moment to reclaim authority over your life, to stand up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to look directly at your excuses and say, you no longer rule me. Because purpose was never meant to kneel before fear. Purpose was meant to wear the crown, and crowns are heavy. They require strength, discipline, sacrifice, responsibility, but they also represent identity. leadership, impact, legacy. So wear yours, not arrogantly. Earn it. Earn it through consistency. Earn it through resilience. Earn it through service. Earn it through integrity when nobody is watching. Earn it through action while others continue making excuses. And when the storms return, as they always do, stand taller. When setbacks appear, become wiser. When fear whispers, move anyway. When the path becomes steep, remember why you began. Remember the dream that kept you awake. Remember the future calling your name. Remember the person you promised yourself you would become. And continue. Continue when tired. Continue when uncertain. Continue when misunderstood. Continue when progress feels slow. Continue because purpose demands perseverance. Continue because your life matters. Continue because there is power inside you still waiting to be unleashed. Continue because the greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is living and dying without ever discovering what you are truly capable of becoming. Do not let that be your story. Kill the excuses. Silence the weakness. Discipline the mind. Strengthen the spirit. Protect the vision. Master the habits. Face the fear. Honor the calling. And crown your purpose with the life you choose to build from this day forward. Because one day the world will ask what you did with the time, the gifts, the opportunities, the pain, the lessons, the breath you were given. And your answer must be more powerful than, "I was afraid." Your answer must become the evidence of a life fully lived, a life that refused to surrender, a life that turned struggle into strength, a life that transformed adversity into wisdom, a life that chose purpose over excuses, a life that rose, a life that built, a life that mattered. Now rise, and do not stop until your actions finally introduce the world to the person you were born to become. Because there will come a day when everything around you tries to convince you to lower your standards, a day when exhaustion feels louder than ambition, a day when disappointment tries to rewrite your identity, a day when life asks whether your purpose is real or whether it was only temporary emotion. That day matters, not because it destroys you, because it reveals you. Anyone can speak about dreams when the sun is shining. Anyone can feel inspired during moments of excitement. But storms expose foundations. Pressure exposes character. Silence exposes belief. And the people who ultimately rise are the ones who understand that purpose is not a mood. Purpose is a commitment, a sacred commitment between who you are now and who you refuse to die without becoming. There are people walking through life with incredible talent and broken discipline, people with brilliant ideas and weak execution, people with massive dreams and microscopic consistency, and they remain trapped, not because destiny rejected them, but because they never mastered themselves. Self-mastery changes everything. The ability to command your attention in a distracted world is power. The ability to remain calm in chaos is power. The ability to continue moving while emotions fluctuate is power. The ability to delay gratification for a greater vision is power. And power begins internally long before it becomes visible externally. That is why your private habits matter more than public appearances. The world sees performance, but performance is created in invisible moments. In the early mornings, nobody celebrates. In the hours of study, nobody notices. In the repeated acts of discipline, nobody applauds. Your future is being shaped in silence right now. And silence is where greatness is often built. Do not underestimate quiet progress. A tree does not scream while growing. The ocean does not announce every wave. The strongest transformations often happen without noise. But eventually the results become impossible to ignore. That is why patience matters. Not passive waiting, Intentional persistence, the patience to keep planting while others keep doubting, the patience to keep sharpening your skills while others chase shortcuts, the patience to remain loyal to your purpose while immediate rewards remain unseen. Because too many people abandon the process simply because they cannot instantly see the harvest. But harvests arrive after seasons of invisible growth. And if you quit too soon, you interrupt your own becoming. Do not interrupt your becoming. You have already survived days you once thought would break you. You have already walked through uncertainty. You have already endured pain that forced you to grow stronger. Do not disrespect your own resilience by doubting yourself now. Remember who you are becoming, not the frightened version of yourself created by old failures, not the insecure version shaped by criticism, not the exhausted version trapped in temporary discouragement. Remember the deeper self beneath the fear, the self that still believes, the self that still hungers for impact, the self that still feels called towards something greater. That voice matters. Protect it, because modern life is filled with forces designed to numb that voice. Noise everywhere, distraction everywhere, comparison everywhere. People scroll endlessly through the lives of strangers while neglecting the destiny of their own soul. They compare beginnings to someone else's middle. They compare private struggles to public images. And slowly comparison becomes discouragement. Discouragement becomes inaction. Inaction becomes regret. Do not fall into that trap. Comparison is the thief of clarity. Your assignment is not to become somebody else. Your assignment is to fully become yourself. The strongest people are not copies. They are originals sharpened through struggle. Your path will not look identical to anyone else's path because your purpose is unique. Your timing is unique. Your story is unique. And your responsibility is to honor that story instead of abandoning it because somebody else appears ahead of you. The oak tree does not envy the mountain. The river does not envy the sky. Everything powerful in nature fulfills its own design. You must learn to do the same. Walk your path with conviction, even if progress feels slow, even if recognition comes late, even if people fail to understand your vision, because delayed recognition does not erase purpose. Some of the most powerful transformations happen far away from public attention, in hidden seasons, in lonely seasons, in seasons where all you possess is faith, discipline, and a vision nobody else can yet see. Those seasons matter. Those seasons build depth. Those seasons strengthen endurance. Those seasons teach you whether your mission is genuine or merely dependent on applause. And applause is dangerous when it becomes addictive. Because if external validation controls your motivation, criticism will control your emotions. Freedom begins when your purpose becomes stronger than people's opinions. Some people will celebrate you only after your struggle becomes successful. Before success, they may doubt you, question you, laugh at your ambition, dismiss your vision. But remember this, people often criticize what they secretly lack the courage to pursue themselves. Do not inherit the limitations of fearful minds. You were not born to carry somebody else's ceiling over your own life. Think bigger. Move bolder. Expect more from yourself. Not from arrogance, from responsibility. Because hidden within you are capacities you have not yet fully touched. Strength you have not fully activated. Creativity you have not fully explored. Leadership you have not fully embodied. But those capacities awaken only through use. Unused potential weakens. Exercised potential expands. That is why action is sacred. Action transforms possibility into reality. Ideas alone do not change lives. Movement does. Execution does. Consistency does. And sometimes the smallest action becomes the beginning of the greatest transformation. One decision to wake up earlier, one decision to stop procrastinating, one decision to stop tolerating mediocrity, one decision to invest in your growth, one decision to finally believe that your future deserves effort. Everything changes through decisions repeated consistently. That is how identities evolve. Not through wishing, not through hoping, through repeated intentional behavior. Your routines reveal your priorities. Your habits reveal your future. And your future will always demand a stronger version of you than your present comfort wants to create. So rise above comfort. Comfort is seductive because it asks nothing from you. But comfort also steals growth quietly. The comfort zone is not peaceful. It is dangerous because while you remain comfortable, time continues moving. Opportunities continue passing. Potential continues waiting. And one day, comfort transforms into regret. The graveyard of unrealized potential is filled with people who plan to begin later. Later becomes never more often than people realize. That is why urgency matters. Not panic, purposeful urgency, the understanding that life is precious and temporary. Every sunrise is another opportunity to build. Every breath is another opportunity to evolve. Every challenge is another opportunity to sharpen your character. Do not waste these opportunities sleepwalking through routine. Wake up internally. Become conscious of how valuable your existence truly is. There has never been another human exactly like you in all of history. Your mind is unique. Your perspective is unique. Your experiences are unique. Your voice is unique. And somewhere within all of that uniqueness is a contribution only you can make. Do not rob the world of that contribution because fear convinced you to stay small. Fear has stolen enough dreams already. It has convinced people to remain silent when they were meant to speak, to remain hidden when they were meant to lead, to remain stagnant when they were meant to grow. But fear loses power when confronted repeatedly. The first courageous step is always the hardest. After that, momentum begins building, and momentum is transformative. Once your mind experiences evidence that growth is possible, belief strengthens, confidence deepens, identity expands. That is why you cannot wait to feel fearless before acting. Fearlessness is often the byproduct of repeated courageous action. Move first. Confidence follows. Act first. Clarity follows. Commit first. Strength follows. Life rewards motion. Always remember that. Even when progress appears invisible, even when your efforts feel unnoticed, even when the road becomes steep, keep moving, because stagnation suffocates the spirit while movement awakens it. And there is nothing more dangerous than a human being fully awakened to their purpose. That kind of person cannot be controlled easily, cannot be distracted easily, cannot be discouraged permanently, because they have seen something beyond temporary comfort. They have seen vision. They have touched meaning. They understand their life carries responsibility, and responsibility creates strength. The moment you stop asking what life owes you and begin asking what you owe your potential, your mindset transforms. Victims complain about conditions. Builders create despite conditions. Victims focus on obstacles. Builders focus on solutions. Victims surrender authority. Builders reclaim it. Choose carefully which mindset you feed, because whatever mindset you strengthen eventually shapes your destiny.